The province recently announced new restrictions which will impact millions of Albertans, including students and business owners once again. To discuss the new public measures in more detail is Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Neudorf. Nathan, welcome back to Bridge City News.
Great to be here, Hal.
Now, the province announced that students, kindergarten through grade 12, will have to go back to online learning until May 25th. That means kids will not be able to see their friends in school right now. Now, studies have shown that these lockdowns and restrictive measures are having a major negative impact on the mental health of so many of our youth. Do you think this is really necessary? Is there really that much COVID-19 transmission in our schools?
Well, Hal, that's a great question. And unfortunately, I do think this step is necessary. Not that there's that much transmission at schools, but that with close contacts requiring those individuals to self-isolate, that's impacting literally tens of thousands of students and teachers. And we just want to get ahead of these things. So we're thinking that this 2-week break will allow teachers and support staff to go get vaccinated, to allow a little bit of that break to stop that transmission, that spread, and then we can go back hopefully with a clean slate just within a couple of weeks. But this is really tough on kids especially. But sometimes you just need to get ahead of this wildfire and stop that spread, and we're hoping that this will do that.
So what are you saying to parents then that are saying, my kids are suffering so much anxiety and depression, having to stay at home and being isolated away from their friends?
I know it is really troubling, but none of us are choosing to be here. None of us, if we had a choice, would pick COVID-19. It's one of those things that we have to address, we have to deal with, and we have to try to take some measures to stop that spread and allow those teachers and staff that have been impacted, maybe they've caught the virus themselves, give them a chance to get ahead, get caught up on their health, to get a chance to get vaccinated so we can really address this hopefully once and for all.
Restaurants are forced to close their outdoor patios once again, no more in-person dining. Now, many restaurant owners I've spoken to in Lethbridge say they can't survive, Nathan, with just takeout or delivery service. Is more funding help potentially on the way to our small and medium business owners?
Well, we have reopened the small enterprise grant specifically for them for this reason, and it's open till the end of May. But we absolutely know that this is devastating for them. It's been an incredibly difficult 14 months. We want to see them fully opened as soon as possible. And I do continue to advocate on their behalf to see every business open as long as some safety measures are in place. Right now, we've had to take this additional step. It's not what we want, but hopefully we can provide them some supports to get them through just a couple more weeks.
Hopefully a lot more of these business owners will actually survive, especially the restaurant owners. Now, the new temporary rent assistance benefit opened to eligible Albertans on May the 1st. Can you explain really how that works?
Sure, it's a modest subsidy for those who are working or maybe in between jobs or just can't quite get ahead, and it'll give them a little bit of income to help them pay that rent. And from my understanding, it's full subsidy for this year, and in the second year, it's reduced somewhat, but it's calculated on the size of the household and where they live in the province. And eligible people are either employed or looking for a job, or they have been employed for the last 24 months, but not if they're also receiving some other social assistance at this time.
Now, what are your thoughts on the 4,000 Albertans who recently showed up at that outdoor rodeo in Bowden during the current government restrictions? Many said they were there simply to support local business owners, and besides, it was outdoors, so what's the harm?
Well, it is challenging. Albertans are freedom lovers for sure, but timing is everything, Hal. We are really trying to get ahead of the spread rate of this COVID-19. The weather is better. It's just really, really challenging, but literally in 3 weeks or a month from now, maybe it would have been great. But right now, with our numbers at some of the highest case counts we've seen in the province and even across the country per capita, with our hospitalization and ICU numbers creeping up, we've got to see that turn, and then we'll be able to get them back to those things that they want to do. We all want to do that. We all want to be outside and in these activities and going to these events. And it is really hard. It's impossible for us to ask for a little bit longer, but we're really trying. And like I said before, we want to see these venues open. We want to see businesses open. We need some precautions to stop that spread. Timing is really everything. It is maybe a little bit of bad timing. It just shows the fatigue and impatience people have to get back to life as normal. But we just have to be thinking of others first whenever we can.
And you and I both know that Albertans love their rodeos. I mean, we love our rodeos here. The Calgary Stampede, I've covered a lot of the FCA rodeos over the years, and you can't take away our rodeos here. Now, Nathan, many politicians are taking it on the chin right now as the lockdowns and restrictions continue. Premier Jason Kenney's popularity rating is taking a bit of a hit, and it's been challenging for you as well. You're hearing it from all sides?
Absolutely. It has been incredibly hard. Nobody likes their freedoms restricted, especially not Albertans. They still have that pioneering spirit. I've seen it as I've traveled the province with this job. People want to be back in control of their lives, doing the things that they love to do. There's no pleasure in this, but we are trying to take prudent steps to stop that spread. Hal, sitting alone in your basement, you're not spreading that to anybody and you're not getting it from anybody. It's not what we want to do, and it's not what we're saying, but we have to impose a few things to try to make this happen. But it is tough. It is tough when you're the one trying to find the way through it, and there's no perfect answer. Alberta is known for its diversity, from our fantastic, gorgeous rural areas and that farming lifestyle to our two awesome metropolitan cities. One rule, one size doesn't fit all. That's another factor that makes it so difficult to try to manage this in a ways appropriate for each age level, each demographic, each rural, urban, and metro center. But hopefully we can get through this sooner rather than later.
We keep hearing how so many of the ICUs at hospitals are overflowing with COVID-19 patients. Have you actually been to our hospital, Chinook Regional? Is it as dire as people are saying right now, or is it blown way out of proportion?
Well, I haven't been there personally. I think it would be imprudent for me to do so at this time. Again, I don't want to be going to areas where I could be carrying a virus or any kind of virus in those areas. But I have talked to lots of people who work in our Chinook hospital, fantastic frontline workers, our doctors, our nurses, our respiratory therapists, and even our support and sanitary cleaning staff. The challenge is that we have in Lethbridge only about 14 ICU beds. And until last week, 9 of those beds were for COVID patients and 5 for other ICU needs. So that's a strain there. They've done an incredible job managing that. And thankfully, this week, we've seen that number down to only 6 COVID patients in those beds, which is great news. We need to see that trend continue. The thing I think people need to remember is there's a very thin line between max capacity and overcapacity. If we were at 9 last week, it would only take 2 or 3 patients, and then we're over. And what we do with that? And it's not that we can't find another bed, but how do we find more support staff? How do we find more specially trained nurses and those kind of roles? And that's why we want to be careful and cautious. And nobody wants to be running on the red line all the time. It really is hard on your staff and your resources in particular. But we'll continue to work with them and try to manage that in a prudent way.
There are some concerns right now when it comes to issues of blood clotting involving some of the vaccines. First of all, have you had your shot?
I haven't yet. I haven't been eligible up to this point, but tomorrow it opens up for my age category, and I look forward to booking for my shot. My wife is fully vaccinated as a frontline worker, so we're going to go do that. And again, there's risks with everything. There's significant risk for those catching COVID from different things, including blood clots from catching COVID. But there are some very, very small risks for vaccines. But I do think it's prudent to get vaccinated to help us stop the spread so we can get back to lives as we know it.
So what are your thoughts of Health Canada now lowering the age eligibility to the age of 12 for someone to receive their vaccine dose?
Well, I think from what I've learned and studied that the younger age of our population, the younger you go, the less significant the repercussions are from catching COVID. So I think this just offers parents an opportunity to choose whether they want their child vaccinated or not. And we are pursuing legislation to free all Albertans to have the choice of whether they want that vaccination. It's not mandatory. And I would ask them to do research and be careful with their choice either way. And I think it's great for them to have that freedom. But I'm really excited for everyone who wants to be able to get vaccinated within the next week or so. They can start booking those appointments And I think that's going to be a real turning point for us here in Alberta.
With the increase in cases here of COVID-19 in the province, do you think the Premier would actually ever take that step and make the vaccine mandatory?
Absolutely not. We already have legislation tabled in the House proceeding. I believe it's in stage 2, second reading, that will remove that mandatory vaccination measure under the Public Health Act. And I think Albertans want that freedom. I think it's prudent to do that, and I think it would be an extreme measure for a government to require that in this day and age. And like I said before, Albertans are pioneers at heart, and they love their freedoms and liberties, and I think they need that opportunity to make that choice for themselves.
Nathan, the province announced recently that it'll be easing continuing care visits so we can see more of our seniors in the long-term care facilities. Is that still to go with the province's new restrictions?
Yes, everything that I've done and asked and to follow up on that tells me that yes, many of those easings will remain in place because predominantly that population is nearly 100% vaccinated, double vaccines, and they have been so for over a month or two. So they've had the time for the vaccinations to get to their full potency. And that's why we're not seeing as many of that age group in hospital or ICUs or passing away, which is really good news. And they too need their freedoms and liberty, especially to see family members. I think this has been a very difficult time for them. They're not as mobile, they can't get out, they can't get around and go do some of the activities that they were doing before, coupled that with winter. So we're really excited that they will have some of these opportunities to see a bit more family in a very safe way.
Many farmers I've spoken to over the last year said they had some bumper crops, even during the pandemic. How is the province able to eliminate more red tape to help our producers even further here in southern Alberta?
A couple of really exciting things on that vein, Hal. The Agricultural Financial Services Corporation, or AFSC, has added a number of different things to just ease some red tape from farmers in their daily lives and their business. Quick loan approvals, reduced waiting time for correspondence, improved renewal process, loan deferrals, and electronic signatures, just to name a few things. It doesn't sound like a lot sometimes, but if you're stuck in a tractor on a huge field like we have here in Alberta, an electronic signature or to be able to do some of that stuff from the cab of their tractor is really, really great news. On top of that, there's been some other interesting developments, like consumers can now purchase beef direct from a farm and have it slaughtered through the slaughterhouse and pick it up from there, cutting out a whole lot of red tape. And for those who maybe are part of 4-H or just part of that lifestyle, that's a great step forward for them in their farms and their lives.
It reminds me I need to fire up the barbecue here fairly soon as well with our warm weather we're getting. Now, on one of your Facebook posts, you have said that Lethbridge plays an important role for trade and development in Alberta. Now, we serve as a gateway to the northwestern United States and Western Canada's vital trade commodities. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. It's one of my most exciting files is to promote Lethbridge and our trade hub that we are. We're at the center of 4 highways, Highway 2, Highway 3, Highway 4, Highway 5. We have a railroad yard right here and lots of rail access. We're improving our airport with monies provided by the provincial government this year to expand our capacity for freight and passenger with new terminal and a longer runway. So we're really a hub for that trade. And what a lot of people don't realize is not only are we a hub and a center for agriculture and agricultural products like beef and grains and pork and chicken and sugar and all those kinds of things, potatoes, French fries, and chips, but we're also a manufacturing hub. We have aircraft engines manufactured right here in Lethbridge. We have trailer parts, disposal bins, plastics that go to worldwide markets. Making sure that we can access those trade routes more easily with possibly, this is the new idea, a pre-inspection for commercial trucking to get across the border in an express lane can really maximize that capacity and maximize Lethbridge's attraction to new business and new business growth.
Lethbridge Police Chief Shaheen Medizadeh recently sent off a plan he has for the LPS to Justice Minister Casey Medu about how things are going to change the Lethbridge Police Service moving forward. Have you spoken to Minister Medu about the submission from Chief Shaheen Medizadeh and his reaction?
Yeah, I have a little bit to him, a little bit to his staff. He's obviously very busy these days, but he has received it. He's very thankful that the chief has done a great job on getting it to him on time. There's lots to work with. I understand from his ministry that the ministry is continuing to work with the Lethbridge Police Service to make sure that all the parts and pieces are in place and that we move forward with a strong and healthy police force. I'm really proud of our men and women in blue for what they do for Lethbridge. And I think this is a great step forward, and I appreciate their participation and cooperation in this tough time.
We only have a few moments left here, but I wanted to ask you, with the mercury climbing, we're starting to see just how much of a homeless issue we have in our city once again. Many agree it's tied with the opioid crisis in Lethbridge. What is the province doing to work with the city to address both?
Well, we have worked with the city a lot in funding treatment and recovery beds. That's the first major step for many of these people caught in addiction. But we've also added a lot of funding for supportive housing to those who maybe struggle a little later in life or have just been at a place where it's really tough for them to get out of. Providing those beds where they can have a safe and secure place to sleep every night instead of having to find an overpass or something like that, sleeping rough. We're really excited about some of those projects, actually shovels in the ground this year, hopefully with beds open by next year. There's two of them resulting in hopefully over 100 new beds and spaces for people in this population. And I think that's going to go a long way to helping them, and they're helping our community in a compassionate way and get these people back onto lives that are more productive for them.
Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Neudorf, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, Hal. Appreciate it.